Hi, and welcome to the Cosmic Prayer. I am so excited to be here. My name is Laura Topper, and today on the Cosmic Prayer, I have an amazing super guest who has said yes to shining her light, as she always does on New Thought Media Network. Lindsay Leimbach is here weekly with her broadcast and her teachings, as she is an incredible teacher, sharing her teaching, her show, Practicing Infinite Possibilities, that's here every single Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And today, here we are, Monday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and Lindsay is here waiting to come on. I just want to share a little bit about when Lindsay, as I know her, as a teacher of mindfulness and more than mindfulness, spiritual practice, and how this all really aligns with the brain and neuroscience. And this is what she teaches in her practice and events, and has so much experience as a school teacher for more than 30 years, teaching and having experience of teaching. So she really is a teacher. And Lindsay formerly is the head director of a special education school working with severely emotionally challenged individuals and their families. This is what I love about Lindsay, is that she's so inclusive of the whole family, working with children and their parents and carers to enable these lights, these young lights, to be held and supported in the best possible of ways. She's taught classes and seminars for schools and groups and businesses and parents on mindful living and mindful eating, active awareness, and becoming your personal best. Lindsay is a mindful living coach working with adults, teens, and children as well. Lindsay is currently on the executive board of the Southeast Ventura County YMCA. I know that Lindsay has a lot of wealth of knowledge and experience that she is just, I'm excited for her to share this here on the show today. So I'm going to just bring Lindsay in and open up to welcoming Lindsay Leimbach onto the Cosmic Prayer. It's so great to be here with you today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm kind of excited I am really excited to be here with you because the Cosmic Prayer, as you say, is the title. It makes it sound so, I don't know, like you're going to become enlightened, or it's so woo-woo, or I don't know, it's just so big and grand. You can take it in different ways. And my experience is simple. Now, I guess it really isn't that simple, but I feel like such the common guy, the common girl, the common woman, and I still feel that way. And I think that that's one reason why I've been able to go out into the world outside of the church or the holy place and bring our teachings and bring our love and bring our connection to spirit into really different places like schools, businesses, law firms, JPL, NASA, all these things. They don't know it, but they're in my prayers because my prayers are my thinking. So I'm just so pleased to be able to tell you how I got here.
Oh, well, I'm really happy that you're here and really excited that you're here, because I know from being a part of your show in the production, on the production side, and just listening to you and hearing you and your teaching and the way that you teach, and realizing that, yes, here is a woman that really understands how to use prayer, or in whatever way, shape that you do that. And so I'm really interested, Lindsay, on what your idea of prayer actually is for you personally.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great question. And for me, prayer truly is the thought I'm having in the present moment. which is a little out there from all the other religious, and like there's the formal prayer that people do. I don't necessarily do that. However, I want to tell you, this weekend I was at a party, and it was like a Hindu. You can see I got my Hana tattoo, and I was welcoming people for my girlfriend. It was a Hindu party, a Hindu-based party. And I was giving them these bracelets, and I was giving them a little prayer as I put on, or I would just say whatever came out. And this lady looked at me and said, "Do you know agape?" Well, agape is Michael Beckwith, who's down the street from me. And she had no idea. I'm like, yes, I know Michael Beckwith. And I totally laughed, and she goes, "You sound like them." So I know I sound like religious science because it is in my soul completely, even when I just sit down and it just starts spewing out with great love. And some of the people came back and they said, "Can I get another bracelet?" And so I was giving, and they go, no, I want you to bless the bracelet again. They said that was the best part of the party. So when spirit is going through you and out, and just even in a party, people feel it. People feel it. So go back to what I want to talk about is how did I get there? How did I get there? And of course,
that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. We all have a story, and everyone's story is interesting, but they have a story. But I remember being very young, like 4 years old, 5 years old, and thinking, all thoughts, I don't know where I got this, but all thoughts have been thought. All thoughts have been thought, like they were already in the universe. Somehow, I'm like, nothing is original. I had this feeling like nothing was original. People would say, like, make up music. I'm like, I can't make up music. Everything has already been made up. So there was this kind of feeling inside of me that something, that there was grand, there's a grandness that I was connected to, and that even though I was being an original person, an original kid, I felt like everything was already done. Like there was a presence of God that was awe. And then my parents, I came from a Protestant background. Now get this, 8 generations, Presbyterian, same church. Of course, you know I'm from the East Coast, because there's no way you can have 8 generations Protestant out here on the West Coast in the same church. That is hundreds of years that we were from Baltimore, Maryland. And my ancestry goes all the way back to the Mayflower Society, to the Daughters of the Revolution. I had relatives that fought on both sides in the Civil War. And I have the whole mapping. So I have this incredible background of being very Protestant, stoic, martyr, tough, get out there and grow your own food and don't complain kind of background. That's the religious cultural background I came from. And I would sit down, and my grandma, we would pray before we would go to bed, or pray before we would eat or go to church. And in our church, they would read, we'd have things, and they would read you a prayer, and then you would answer back, but they would tell you what to read. And I thought the whole thing was bogus. I did. When I was young, I was like, this is a con. And my parents would be like, what do you mean it's a con? I'm like, Mom and Dad, let me tell you something. God is not just listening when you pray. It's everything you think. God is everywhere. And if you think it's only happening right before you go to bed, you're wrong, Or if my minister at the time could tell me exactly what I need to pray, I'm like, no, God knows what I need to pray. I don't even need to pray, because God knows what I need all the time. If God is everywhere. I had that concept and that principle when I was like 6. And I would get mad.
Wow.
I know. And I would say, and so they'd say, do it anyway. And I'd say, well, that's fine. I'll do it anyway. And I'll say, God, you already know what I'm about to pray, because you're everything anyway, but here we go. So I would lie in bed and I would actually think about this, saying that there's something really wrong in the system that I was growing up in. I just felt it. And then when I was 12, we get confirmed. So you have to go to confirmation classes. And so I went to the classes and they were teaching us. And I came to my parents and I said, I don't believe this. I do not believe what they're teaching me. I'm really sorry, but I cannot do this. And my parents knew I didn't like school, and that's a whole different story. And they said, listen, you have to go to all the classes, and if you choose not to be confirmed into the Presbyterian Church, that's your choice. 8th generation. You're the 8th generation in this church. Are you sure you don't want to be? We can have
No
guilt in our
pressure.
yeah. And you're not
mine.
getting any party and you're not going to get any presents. And I said, okay. So I went to all the classes and then I looked at him and I said, I'm not getting confirmed. I do not want to join this church. I'm not going to say that I won't go to church with you, but I did not want to commit to saying this is what I believed, because it wasn't what I believed. It was too, it's a beautiful religion. It has a beautiful church. Everyone was very supportive, but it was too narrow for me. It was too narrow. I knew something else was going on. And so my parents told my grandmom, I wasn't there. And then later on, they told me my grandmom cried that I didn't join the church, but she never, ever made me feel bad or question me. So I was very supportive in that. And so I want to take it a little step further. My father, this is my dad's mom. So my dad has a brother, my uncle Telly, and he too, but very quietly went on his own journey. And he followed, this is Meher Baba from India. And Meher Baba is a full realized human being. He died in the 70s, but my uncle Telly followed Meher Baba, found him in the 60s, and he had a room in my grandparents' house at the 3rd floor. And if I went up to his room, there was a big picture of Meher Baba. So I didn't know anything about Meher Baba, but because my uncle Telly was there and he ends up being really a spiritual pathway leader in my life, I knew there was a different way. He very much did not share the different way with me. He honored his family, but it was present.
Yeah.
It was present, you know? And so he really became
This is amazing.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is I live in California near Ojai, and in Ojai, Meher Baba has a retreat, and my husband and I go up there and meditate at his retreat sometimes. So, and he has one in Myrtle Beach in North Carolina too. Meher Baba, one thing I loved about him that I learned from my uncle is that at some point he took a vow of silence. Meher Baba, and he said, I'm not going to say anything. And then he extended it, and I can't remember, but it was like for 30 years, he spoke nothing. And the reason why he spoke nothing is because he said, everything has already been said. And that rang true with how I felt when I was 4.
Lindsay, this is powerful that he was your uncle and he was repeating what you had already known. So did you know him growing up? Did you know him as a 4-year-old?
My uncle?
Yes.
Oh yeah, my uncle was very
close
much
to
part
him.
of. Yeah, he was a part of my life, but I would just see him at holidays. But he loved me very much. I knew that. But he lived away, and he was he was married. He lived in DC, and I lived in Baltimore. But he had this wave of influence and trust. I really believe, honestly, that my uncle and I in past lives have done many, many cycles together in many, many ways. So we really help each other. And he helped me again, I will say, in the 1990s. he sent me a book, The Conversation with God, book 1, when it first came out. And he just sent it to me. I was living in California, and he said, I think you should read this. And I read it, and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Everything I know is being written in this book. It was my first New Age book, you know, like out there book. I didn't know anything about religious science. I didn't know anything about Hinduism, anything. I just got this book. I was like, this is it. This is on. This man's on target. He's having a relationship with God that I feel. And I have always felt that way. It's this personal relationship. It goes back to this. It goes to this personal relationship we all have, this power we all have, and we all just need to wake up. And it's not a wake up like, oh my God, you have to take mushrooms or ecstasy or got to meditate in a cave for 10 years and go through a billion classes to wake up. Hey, if you want to do all that, that's on you, but you don't have to do any of that. You just wake up right now and see the connection with God inside of you in this inner voice that keeps talking to you. And that is my cosmic prayer. That is what I've always felt my whole life, that it's a knowing and it's a waking up to being connected to the vibe right now. Right now.
It's amazing. I love this. I'm going to welcome in Wayne. Hi, Wayne. Welcome to the Cosmic Prayer today. We're here with the wonderful Lindsay Leimbach. Owl, welcome to the Cosmic Prayer. It's so great to be with you here. If you have any questions for Lindsay or any comments, please put them in. We're here to talk about prayer and Lindsay's experience of prayer. And wow, what a story. I love this. You said at the beginning, Lindsay, everyone has a story. And I think it's so powerful how your story, it has and is informing your life, and how your uncle opened. Well, it's no coincidence, is it? People around us open us up, whether it's a difficult process or not. Your uncle was there. Yes, you're right. You're right. There is another way. And he showed you this other way. And I'm really interested because you said he took a vow of silence for 30 years. Does that mean that he literally didn't speak after that, after he took that vow? Or was he just silent about?
So I'm sorry for the confusion. My uncle didn't take the vow of silence. Mayor Baba took the vow of silence.
Oh, Mayor Baba. Okay, I thought, wow, your uncle took a vow of silence. That's incredible. Yeah, Mayor Baba, I can
really
get it. Okay.
Now, Mayor Baba did it, and he had a lot of followers and supporters. And he spoke with hand languages and gestures, and he had translators that understood what he was saying, but he didn't speak because he was fully enlightened. And he said, you already know. And that's what I love. You already know. I work with a lot of people. I know you do too. And there's this longing of wanting to be happy. There's this longing of searching to be something different. And that's the human experience, because we feel our ego and our individuality separates us, and we're longing to get somewhere. To me, it's already there. When I start getting that longing and I start searching, then I have to go back and say, wait a second, sit down again. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. I met Ram Dass. Here's a picture of me and Ram Dass. That's me. There's Ram Dass there. And I love Ram Dass. And in his teaching, I remember one time, it really read true to me. This man came up to him and said to Ram Dass, I can meditate. I go up in those mountains and I can bliss out, and it's so wonderful. And I'm connected with the trees and God, and it's just great. And I feel enlightened. And then I have to go back into my apartment in the city, and I don't get there. What should I do? And he said, keep practicing in the city. That's it. That's it. You think you need, I just went to Northern California and hug trees. If you want to see my Facebook page, Lindsay Leimbach, be my friend. I'd love to be your friend. And it was wonderful and it was connected. But it's about, hey, that was a fun experience. Can I hug my tree here? Can I hug it with you? Can I wake up to this moment now? Can I have clarity now? And I want you to know I've had this experience. I have the experience all the time. Sometimes you really identify it. And so I want to tell you a little bit about religious science, because it's very interesting how I found religious science. That never heard anything about that. That was totally never heard of Ernest Holmes, never heard of any of that New Thought, Michael Beckwith, none of that I've never heard. And I was in Barnes and Noble, and I was with my son, who was maybe like 6 months old, no, 3 months old. And the other one was like 8. So I was holding one and one was in a stroller. We were on the second floor of Barnes and Noble in Westlake, California. And I saw this lady pick up the 4 Agreements, which I had read. Somehow I found the 4 Agreements. She picked up this book, and inside of me, now this is just some random lady, you know, who was about 10, 20 years older than me. And I'm with these 2 little kids, said, talk to that lady. I'm like, oh. And I even have sometimes these dialogues with myself. I'm like, I don't want to talk to that strange lady. I have my 2 kids here. I want to get out of this bookstore. And I heard it again, talk to the lady. So I said, all right. So I went over to the lady with my kids in tow, middle of the day, and said to her, that's a great book. You should read it. And she said, you like this book? And I said, absolutely. And she goes, you should come to my church. And it was the Westlake Church of Religious Science. And she wrote it down and handed me the card. I said, okay. Never knew it. Could have been a cult for all I knew. No idea. Went home. This is the early 90s. So we didn't have this, you know, the whole Googling and all this that we could look things up at all back then. It wasn't like that. And I was like, I'm going to go. And my husband at the time, I'm on my second and last and best husband right now, but this was my first husband. I said, I'm going to go to this Church of Religious Science. And he's like, you go to that cult thing. I'm not going. He's like, that's crazy stuff. I'm like, okay. And he's like, and I'm not taking care of the kids. And I'm like, okay, I guess I am. So I put on my kids, drove to Westlake, walked in. They had a crying room. So I put my little son in the Sunday school, never met anybody, did not know a soul, was in the crying room with my 3-year-old, I mean, not 3-year-old, 3-month-old baby, listening to Reverend Sue Rubin. She was Dr. Reverend Sue Rubin, who is now in her 90s and still teaching, by the way. And I just started to cry. I said, oh my God, these people know. This is it. This is it. And there was another lady next to me with her baby named Barbara. And she was doing the same thing, and her husband refused to go. And to this day, I just spent the weekend with Barbara. She is still one of my very, very best friends. And we met in that crying room, and that became my home. That became my home. I mean, it makes me want to cry. It was so I did 100, 200, 300, and 400 with Science of Mind, and Dr. Sue Rubin was my main teacher, but I had quite a few teachers from ministers out here, you know, and that's where I met actually Michael Beckwith and all the other people in it. But that's how I got to religious science, was from the 4 Agreements, hearing that inner voice, hearing and saying, my human saying, I'm not talking to that lady. She's gonna think I'm crazy. And saying, yes, do it anyway.
Do it anyway. And I love this. It's like, you're highly intuitive, and to be, you know, to listen to the voice, or to hear it and then to act on it, that's a different thing, because we're all hearing it all the time. But it's, how are we able to open up to really listening and to really then acting upon what is the fear, what holds people back, Lindsay, from really stepping into their greatness or taking action on that voice, which is, you know, which is God speaking through us. What stops us doing that?
The fear is that you're going to be judged, or you're judging yourself, and that you're going to be seen as crazy. I really believe that that's the fear, in that you're thinking that you have to conform to be happy, and that being looked out there as being different, you're going to be alienated. And as you know, I've taken mindfulness. I haven't even got into my whole profession, but I've taken mindfulness and I teach with the brain. And the brain doesn't want to be lonely. We are connected people, and we want to have connection. And when we have connection with other people, we have to, from way back when, if we weren't connected, we wouldn't survive. You need to have relationships to take care of, find food, shelter, and so forth. So we still have this longing to have connection. So it's weird. We have this feeling that we have to be an individual and be our unique self, called Lindsay Leimbach ego, and I got to take care of myself, and I need to be the best, and I need to make money, and I need to have the house and all that kind of stuff. And then we also have to feel connected. So we have this going on. When we feel judged, like if we're connecting with universal God, people are like, that's weird. You're out there. You're not going in with the tribe. And we have to be careful when we get connected into the tribe. I think I just heard a quote from, I think it was Mark Twain, but please forgive me if it's not. And he said, if you start agreeing with the public, that's the common public around you, then you better sit back and sit down and think about what you're agreeing to. And I thought,
Right.
that's so true. So if you start, and that's why I worked with gangs. So as you were talking about, I worked in a school, a special ed school for emotionally disturbed children. And that's a whole cosmic prayer, God bringing me to that by following my intuition. So, because I was a dyslexic child that went to a special ed school myself, that ended up becoming a special ed teacher, but I hated school. So talk about God really intervening and making this happen multiple ways. But when I worked with kids, they just wanted to be loved. They might beat people up. They might be doing drugs. They might be stealing. They might be stealing cars, whatever it is, homeless, whatever it was. They were doing these things that you would say were horrible. I mean, have tattoos, and they would be cussing and, throwing stuff. But really, the truth is they all just wanted to be loved. And they had to find a group in which would accept them. And gangs will accept you if you conform into their tribe, right? Religions will accept you if you conform into their tribes. A lot of my kids had drug problems, and a lot of them got high a lot. And when they started to get sober, they were pretty upset because their friends, who they saw as their drug friends, their high friends, the easiest group to get into as a kid is stoners. As long as you're smoking pot, you're allowed in the tribe. But as soon as you start not smoking pot and you're going to do something different, the tribe doesn't want you anymore. So the question is, can you stand in your own self and really feel okay and not feel crazy that you don't have to be connected always into the tribe? So when I told you I worked in religious science and I started to cry, these people were my people. Well, I was finding my tribe, and I love that. But the tribe of religious science honors all religions and all pathways. So there wasn't a glass ceiling on the religion, which is why I could go there, where in Presbyterian there was a ceiling saying you do it our way or the highway. In religious science, or the Center of Spirituality, or whatever the name is now, but Ernest Holmes, it isn't this way or the highway. It's this way and more. Infinite possibilities. knowing everyone has an individual way and you're not crazy listening to your connection to God.
Yes, and because we are encouraged to question, that's the piece, isn't it? We're encouraged to question and to find our own truth with religious science and thought. We're open at the top. So we can have these ideas and they might feel crazy to us individually and to others as well. They might feel like, oh my gosh, that's off the wall. And yet it's okay because we can embrace them and really delve into them and find our own truth in our own way, because there are so many paths to the divine. And I love this. I love what you're saying. And I think what you're saying about thought being prayer is every thought being a prayer is so vital that we hear this now. That yes, it's great to have spiritual practice because that becomes our foundational for the day, every day, to practice and then be aware in the day, moment by moment, of what we're thinking and what we're believing. And I hear you talking about this on your show, practicing infinite possibilities of this awareness. Talk a little bit about awareness and why it is so important to be as aware as we can be.
Well, I think what I love so much is that science is catching up to spirituality. Spirituality already knew, and it doesn't matter which religion you're talking about. If you go into the deep purity of spirituality, is that we have to watch what we're thinking, because we're human beings and we have a brain in which has a real, I call it caveman thinking. It has a real primitive level of survival. And that's where you get into that tribal default mode, and that you better be with your group to protect yourself. If not, you're going to be eaten by a tiger. Well, there's no tigers now, and I don't need to protect myself from tigers, and I don't need to be in one group. I don't need to be identified in one group. But our brain is programmed to be always scanning for the problem. And our brain is also programmed that the problem looks different than you. Now let's go back. Our brain is 200,000 years old. It hasn't changed for 200,000 years old. So my tribal ancestors liked people that looked like me, because we all stuck together and we bred together. But when someone looked different than I did, then I had to get alert and say, is this a friend or a foe? I had to make a judgment. Well, we still have that brain, the inside, that DNA in our brain. And so we tend to lean into wanting really quick to hang out with people that look like you, that talk like you, have mannerisms like you, have cultures like you. It's very comfortable for the brain. The brain relaxes and says there's no problem here. That's because that's the way it's programmed. And we have to learn how to now, at a higher consciousness, to override that default mode, because we are not like that anymore. There are people out there. I am 6 feet tall and I look very German, Scandinavian, whatever that looks like, right? And my husband, he's Jewish and he's dark skinned with dark hair and has blue eyes. We look very different, and I adore him in every possible way. So we all have to learn how to, hey, let's get past that caveman thinking, and we have to be aware, are we going back to that old way, of survival, into the higher consciousness that we're all God and that every situation is God? And not to be going into, that's where racism comes in, is you fall into the trap of the old thinking that if someone looks different or acts different or doesn't have your religion is a problem. But that is not true. That's not true. That's an old human experience. So as we're growing and learning, as we're growing and learning, we can become aware, take a breath, and then you can make a different choice. And as you practice that, it becomes easier and easier. So as you learn to embrace other people, other religions, other cultures, other ideas, like I never saw a henna tattoo until I came to California. Wasn't exposed to any of that. As then you don't have that alert system go over all the time. And what I love, Mother Teresa, she's a role model for me. She would go out into the streets and pick up Hindus and Buddhists, any religion, and love them and help them transition. And people would say, how are you doing that? You're a Catholic. They're not Catholic. Are you converting them to Catholicism? She said, oh, no. I'm not doing anything like that. I am loving them for who they are, and I see Jesus in every single one of them. She understood it didn't matter. She saw Jesus everywhere. She saw her Catholic faith. It was her pathway to see God in everyone. It was her pathway. It didn't have to be their pathway. She's my role model. So science of mind and Buddhism is the pathways I am really comfortable with. I love and practice Buddhism as well. But that's just my pathway. So I can see God in everyone and everything. I know we have a lag.
Yes, this is practicing one. I mean, we have a lag, but there's no lag here. There's no lag here. Welcome to the Cosmic Prayer. If you're watching right now, welcome. We're here with the amazing Lindsay Leimbach. She's talking about her own experience of spirituality and prayer, what it means for her, how this overflows into her work life, into her daily life, and what she's bringing into the world with her work. And I'm just feeling so grateful to be here with you, Lindsay, and for also to be here with you. If you're watching right now or at any point watching this Cosmic Prayer, then I know you're meant to be here. Absolutely specific here.
I would like
full of words. This is going to inspire you today.
Laura, I'd like to tell everyone a little bit about what it was like to work with emotionally disturbed, violent, often very violent children who have a violent background of depression and suicide and all that. To make the story, one day when I came to California, I was in sales. I'm not going to get into that whole story. I ended up getting into special ed and working at this special ed school and becoming a special ed teacher, and working basically with 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. Those were my grades. I did middle school for a little bit as well. Then they asked me to be the principal, and I became the principal of the school. And then the school got bought out, and I was in the copier room, which was the teacher's room. And the new head company came in and said, you're in charge. And I looked at my smile and I said, yeah, I'm in charge. And they said, no, the head director is going to retire and we're making you the head director. Now, you want to talk about an incredible thing from God? I had a BA in education and in psychology. Most people that are head directors at schools or principals or head directors, but the head directors tend to be male, 60 years old or older with a PhD. I am a BA, female in my 40s. If that wasn't divine interaction, I don't know what was. I was absolutely qualified because of all the work I had done, but not on paper. I wasn't qualified. And I didn't try out for the job. The job came to me. Now, go back in the beginning when I first started at school, the man who hired me, who I love, Dr. Hill, he kept looking at me going, one day you're going to run the school. One day you're going to run the school. I thought, how in the world am I ever going to run the school? Because I'm not getting more education. I'm not getting my PhD. So that isn't happening. And you know what? But I had a feeling that one day I might run a special ed school. And it happened because those thoughts were out there.
Wow.
They were out there and they were planted
Yeah.
20 years before they happened, or I guess more like 15 years before they happened. But they were planted and they did happen. I can't tell you how they happened. I can tell you what I could envision myself doing, but God did the how. God did the how. And that is absolute miracle. Absolute miracle. Now, one reason why we were so good at this school, and I was good at the school, is the kids would come in and they'd say, let's just call him Bob. Bob, Jesus, whatever his name was, would come in, sit down in my seat with his parents and pissed. They've been kicked out of schools. They failed schools. They don't want to be in a school. The last thing they want to be is in a special ed school, and a little yellow school bus is going to pick them up. One of those special yellow school buses, because all our kids were bussed in. And I would look at them and I'd look right in their eyes and I would talk to their soul. I didn't talk to what I saw sitting in the chair. I talked and respected and loved them for being the purity of God. And I honestly believe that a lot of times, not a lot of times, but souls pick their life. And when you pick a hard childhood life, it's not because you're a broken soul. It's because you're an enlightened soul. You have chosen to be brought up in gangsters or drug addictions or hard parents, or a lot of the parents were in jail. You were chose that childhood so you can learn how to love anyway. Those are more enlightened souls. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it works for me. So I, with reverence and respect, looked at these children and said, I'm going to help you remember who you really are, which is an enlightened soul and a far more advanced soul than I am, because I had an easy life back in Baltimore with my parents and my getting all the help I got. You chose a harder life. I'm going to help you wake up. Now, of course, I didn't say that, but I thought that in my head, and the kids would shift, and the parents were like, I don't know how you just got my kid to say he wants to come to your school. I'm like, because I loved him anyway, like Mother Teresa.
I was just about to say that. You were being Mother Teresa there in the school. You being same knowing and that same energy ministering. That's so beautiful. Lindsay responded to you in that way. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Well, because you were seeing past. You were seeing past what most people would have been looking at and seeing is their brokenness. And you were not defining them by that. You were seeing them truly, truly are. And that can only lead to success and a turnaround in who they think they are.
And so that's exactly right. So when I retired from that, my husband asked me, I asked my husband, what should I do? He said, why do people have to be broken to be identified, to be able to get the help that you were able to get, which was mindfulness, being aware in the present moment without that judging mind? Why can't you teach that to the public? But I can. And I put it together into, I've been doing it for like 9 years. My place that would just wowed me the most where I got to teach it, I'll say, was JPL NASA. So if you put in Lindsay Leimbach video, JPL NASA, they recorded the first one. And that one would, this is my website that you're putting up right now, but this is not, but
this is your website. I am
Lindsay Leimbach, JPL NASA. They recorded it and they shot it to all the screens throughout NASA in Pasadena. And they told me, you can now watch it because I have it up on YouTube. But they told me it was the first time that they had ever had people no one click out of watching a seminar that they were broadcasting through the computer system. I was like, wow, that's so cool. That's so cool. So what I want to say on that is that that's what you and I and lots of people that
That
do
is so cool.
coaching do. We help people. I really want you to understand this is we help people realize that there's no such thing as being broken. There's no such thing as being broken.
Yeah,
There's like Thomas Edison
that
said,
is it.
you know, I tried and didn't succeed 1,000 times, but I learned every time and then I succeeded and made the light bulb. It's all a journey. None of us are broken. There's no poor mistakes, but you've got to learn and grow from them. And for some reason, you've been put on this earth
Yeah.
to have this experience, and no one else can have it because you're the universal individual expression of God as you. And that is your gift that you get to bring to the human experience and to the collective consciousness of changing the world to a higher frequency. And we got to work with your gift, your instrument, and I have to work with mine, but we're still singing and have the same energy of God bringing through us, and that's what we have in common.
And Lindsay, as I'm looking at your website, I'm seeing that you have, I mean, it's incredible what you're doing because you're recreating the classroom again in a different way so that people can, I mean, anybody can come into your classes and feel the love and your teachings. And it's amazing. It's just you. Just what is it that inspires you to teach this? What inspires?
Go back. I think everyone, if you can go back to your childhood, remember what you used to do, especially in private, when you were like 5, 6, 7 years old in private. What was something that was innate in you? Did you draw? Did you write? Did you talk? Did you cook? Did you take care of things? Well, I used to line up my stuffed animals and teach them. Teach. And I would, I don't know what I was teaching them. And by the way, like I said, I was dyslexic and I hated school, but for some reason in my private world, I had this calling. And I look back and I'm like, I was a born teacher. I'm 6 feet tall. And in college, I realized people are going to stare at me no matter where I go. No matter where I go, wherever I walk into, I catch their eye. Not because people are rude, it's because I'm different. Especially in Baltimore, I was really different. In California, there's a lot more taller blonde girls, especially in LA, women. So I'm not that different. But in Baltimore, I am really different. And I would catch, and people would stare at me for a second. And like I said, it wasn't rude. It was that amygdala. I looked different than them. I look different than them. So instead of being victimized by my height, which a lot of times when people feel like they get stared at because they look different than the community they're in, I decide to grab it. If you're going to look at me, then I'm going to tell you something. I got your attention. I'm walking in, and the first thing you want to tell them is a smile. So if you ever feel like you're being stared at, you automatically, instead of being defensive, what we go into a fight, flight, freeze from our amygdala, we go into this like, I'm going to duke it out. You're judging me. You're doing bad. And you start a defensive role. Don't go there. Don't go there. That's caveman thinking. That's the old way. We're out of that. If you feel like someone's staring at you because you're different or for whatever reason, you shoot them that smile. And smiles are actually contagious in the brain. They see a smile and automatically they don't know what to do and they'll smile back. And when you start to smile, you start to release dopamine and serotonin in your brain. And it makes you feel better. But when they start to smile, they start releasing dopamine and serotonin in their brain. And their amygdala, because you're different than what they expected, will start calming down. And then you get to have a conversation. Now, what you do with that conversation is up to you. Have you, Laura, ever had that experience where you walked in and you stood out in a crowd?
Often. And I've also experienced it where I don't feel good. I feel like it makes me feel nervous because I feel like, oh my gosh, why do I feel? But that's my own inner fear that I've had to work through. And having red hair, I had bright red hair as a child. So I really stood out because my hair was brighter than it is now. And I felt like a carrot. And I felt obvious. You know, my friends, well, not my friends, but people that would make jokes about my hair. So at school, that happened a lot. And I had to realize that, okay, I'm D. It's okay, but it took me time to really love myself. And now I agree is such an antidote for all of that. Smiling is, I'm comfortable with myself. I feel good. If you're going to look at me, then look at my smile.
Yeah. You know, they did a
And it
lot of
does
scientific.
change something in your own brain.
Absolutely. They actually
Yeah.
did some studies where if you took a pencil and you're feeling bad, now don't bite too hard, put it in your mouth. I know I look like I have a dog. I'm a dog with a dog bone. So, but what it does is it forces the corners of your mouth to go up, and your muscles, we have muscle memory. Our muscles in our brain, I mean our face, go up, and it triggers in your brain. If your muscles are going up, even though it's artificial, you'll start releasing those positive
Yeah.
chemicals within your body. So I know a lot of times people say, be genuine and be authentic. That is true. You want to be genuine and authentic, but let's say I'm having a bad day or a bad moment and you need to shift. So you want to shift, you need to learn how to shift your own body and your own chemistry. That might be about taking some breaths, putting a pencil in your mouth and saying a prayer. That's your authentic self.
Love it.
Shifting to where you want to go, not staying in where you don't want to go.
Yes. And often I think to be authentic, we need to make an effort. We need to take action and do something to put ourselves into that state, because otherwise it can be a downward spiral and then that just becomes the norm. So you're right, shifting, often faking it and telling the brain something else,
And when
telling
people say,
ourselves something. And it might feel like we're like,
I really want us to understand this because this is very important. We all have this caveman brain that wants to keep us safe, secluded, and be with people that are just like us. It doesn't matter if they're victim people, then victim people like to hang out with victim people. Naysayers want to hang out with naysayers because there's a comfortable zone. But that zone is automatic pilot. It's automatic pilot. It's not authentic. I want you to know it's your automatic pilot of your brain. We have to be authentic means that we have to go back to what you said before, aware. Is that really being authentic? Or is that me being actually kind of automatic pilot lazy because I don't want to really open my heart and take the energy to the prefrontal cortex? It takes more energy to activate your higher consciousness. So when we meditate, we start feeling it a lot of times in this, what they call the third eye, or when you're really on fire, it's like the third eye. You can feel the energy. That's your prefrontal cortex going off inside your brain. There is so much power in there. That's where compassion and empathy, understanding, heart relationships, all that starts going off. So you need to have that energy. Now go back to, how do you get that energy? You got to eat well, because you have a human being. You're a human being with a human body, like a piano. My piano, the instrument is a piano, but I don't treat it bad. My piano, I have to keep it tuned well, in the right environment, make sure the sun doesn't hit it. I don't throw water on it. I take care of it so it plays well. Our body is the piano. It is the instrument in which we get to do the music. So we got to eat well, sleep well, and then make conscious choices to tune it in the morning, do a morning practice, morning meditation, right? And then you get to play with other people that like to play music like you, and you learn and grow. Learn jazz, learn hip hop, learn classical, learn the scale, right? In a piano, you want to learn all that so you do your own music. So you want to learn knowledge. I've read the Bible twice, you know, and I've gone to Bible classes. I know a lot about Christianity. I really dived into it because I wanted to make sure that I understood it. I wasn't rejecting it, I was growing from it. It's so important. Grow.
Right.
Don't reject and run. Grow, grow, grow.
Oh, Lindsay, I want to grow with you, and I want to be here for another hour with you talking. It's amazing. And we have 4 minutes left. So I'm going to ask to share what your prayer would be. What is your prayer here for right now? For if you would like to speak a prayer, or if you just want to say what your prayer is for this time of our lives right now.
Well, let me close my eyes and just say it, speak a prayer, okay?
Yeah.
God, give me the wisdom and the knowledge to understand how to use my tool as myself to express the higher good for all beings, to express my journey, my purpose, and my love, knowing that everything I do has meaning, that knowing that I have the capability to shift my thinking. I have the capability and understand my inner resources and my outer resources to live a life of joy and trust, and understand and accept the magic that's around me, and the gift that is around me, and the love that is around me. And all these gifts of magic, love, and joy are not around me, they're also through me. I know I live my life through me, as me, and this is a wonderful blessing. I bless also New Thought Media Network and Laura and all the opportunities that we can grow and learn together. I say yes to my life today and every day, and every morning and every evening. I give gratitude. And so with all this knowing, so it is.
And so it is. And so it is. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for today, for being who you are and for sharing. And I'm excited and knowing, you know, everyone that's listened and viewed, there'll be something that you can, if you've only just joined right now, we're actually coming to the final closing of this program. So go back, go into YouTube, go onto Lindsay's YouTube site, go onto New Thought Media Network's YouTube page and watch from the beginning. You're going to learn a lot and love a lot and be filled with joy with Lindsay's presence here on the Cosmic Prayer today. You can find out more about Lindsay from her website, centeredmoment.com. Check it out because there are so many offerings there for coaching and classes. And there's the email address where you can email and connect with Lindsay. And of course, watch her program, Practicing Infinite Possibility, which is every Friday here. Yep, Pip. Every Friday here on New Thought Media Network. You're going to be really inspired with Lindsay's teachings on her program, which is a great show.
And we're going to talk about art.
There we go.
That's this Friday with the Dalai Lama. And the following Friday, I'm going to talk about mindful eating as we go into October, November, and December. So everyone wants to know about mindful eating. Get ready for the holidays.
Oh, we need a month series on that, I think. Yeah. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for being here and for shining your light today. And just for who you are, really, thank you for your time here on the Cosmic Prayer today. I love it. I love it. I love it. And thank you to New Thought Media Network. We are a growing and expanding and exciting place. Network here puts out programming like this every single day of the year. Wow. that's incredible. So many beautiful broadcasts and teachings and sharings and music and entertainment and education and different ways of hearing these truths so that we can bring them into our hearts and expand in our knowing of who we are as love. So the website here is for New Thought Media Network. Go and check it out. You'll see more about the programs and the presenters and the vision of the network. And of course, it is a focus ministry, so you can donate into it and support the vision so that these teachings can reach as many people as possible and change lives in different ways. And that is it today from the Cosmic Prayer. It's been so much fun and really such a joy to be here with you, with Lindsay Leimbach. Thank you for everything. And thank you for joining us today as well. Some love and blessings. Stay tuned in because we have more shows here. Practicing prayer right now coming up. And then Bonnie Gonzalez with Your Doula for Grief. She is Your Doula for Grief. Her show will be on in an hour and a half. Until next week on the Cosmic Prayer, love and blessings, and bye for now. Bye, Lindsay.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.